Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Happy last Monday of November. We are almost into the month of December. Your kids went back to school today. Can I get an amen?
Amen. Preach, preacher.
It is a Monday overreaction show here on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff Ketchum. That's Anwar Richardson. Boy, do we got some stuff to talk about today. Do us a solid. Click on the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. 8,000 plus and growing, on our way to 10,000 and then 250. And then we just take over the world. But we need your help one step at a time to get there. Lots of stuff to comment about today on this video. We'll be talking Lincoln Riley in a matter of moments. Leave your comments in the comments section. Anwar, the Texas football season is over. That's in the bag. We did that on Friday. Then the weekend happened, and it feels like we show up today on a Monday, and Texas's position and what it needs to do is what it needs to do. And yet the universe that it lives in feels completely different today with Lincoln Riley heading off to USC. Oklahoma absolutely gut punched and completely caught flat-footed. I mean, everybody was wondering about LSU at various points last week, and Oklahoma felt very confident. Well, he's not going to go there. And he said, I'm not going to go to LSU. And then 24 hours later, he's headed off to USC. It's a monumental moment in the history of Oklahoma football, which makes it very relevant to the University of Texas football program. Your initial thoughts after having about 18 hours to marinate on, I mean, I still can't keep hitting. I'm hitting refresh on Twitter and Orange Bloods every 5 seconds because there's a new decommit. There's, coaches are doing this. Sooner scoops out at the airport at 5 a.m. taking pictures of departing coaches. You don't usually see that.
I mean, first of all, shout out to Sooner Scoop. I don't know if Eddie caught that video. Someone sent it to him, but I've never seen guys leaving. I've seen guys coming and arriving. Like, here's the new coach that's here. We've done the flight tracker shit. We've never done a flight tracker for a guy to get on a plane to leave, or guys. It is a fascinating thing, just from, as we sit here in Texas, just because, like you said, the LSU thing was always kind of weird because you thought, I don't see Lincoln at LSU. You didn't understand why that would make sense. And man, to be able to keep something like that under wraps the way he did, like Lincoln Riley told clearly nobody, right? Just him and his agent. He didn't tell the coaches what was going on. Players weren't tipped off. I mean, and then he pulls the trigger, and it's cold-blooded, dude. Like how he pulled the trigger on them, and what's happened since. I mean, it's cold as ice. And so I know we'll have lots of different conversations, but I'm just starting from like an overall general before we get into specifics of how this goes into a Texas or OU perspective. A little shocking for me, to say the least, but
real quick, on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocked?
10.
Really?
I didn't see it coming. Because here's the thing about the USC job that you usually hear from coaches and people go out there, they say it's really not the most appealing job, or especially what it used to be back in the day. So everyone talks about it's a good job, but it's not a great job. So he leaves a program that he's kind of established to a certain degree. I mean, obviously OU is OU, so I'm not saying like he built it, but what he was able to do, the expectations of year in and year out success, the expectations of getting Heisman Trophy winners, the expectations from recruiting, to then leave everything and then to go to USC, it makes you wonder what the hell is he pissed off about, and what the hell does he not like about the OU program that he went, and goes there. Now, at the end of the day, Catch, he goes out there and wins, and no one's going to really think twice about it except for those who were affected. But yeah, it definitely caught me off guard. And just like you, I'm hitting refresh every couple of minutes because it is fascinating.
I'm probably at like an 8.5 on the shock meter, 85. Um, I think that, I've always thought that Lincoln Riley would eventually leave Oklahoma. He's such a young guy. And there had been so much NFL interest over the last few years as the Cliff Kingsburys of the world get jobs as, offensive first head coaches. And so I've never thought of him as a guy that was going to be a lifer at Oklahoma. I just didn't. So I'm not shocked that he left, because if you told me a week ago, hey, Lincoln Riley on Saturday is going to take another job somewhere, or something's going to happen and we're going to know that he's leaving Oklahoma, there'd be a part of me that would go, well, that would either be 6 consecutive championships or 7, depending on what happens with the Bedlam game. I guess if it happened on Saturday, that would let you know that they lost. But he's done everything at Oklahoma that he maybe thinks that he can do. And I'm reading over on Sooner Scoop is that he and the AD had a bit of a falling out. That Lincoln Riley isn't as big of a fan of the idea of Oklahoma going to the SEC as Oklahoma fans and Texas fans are, and maybe Texas as a program in general. He's not super excited, which I totally get. Like, we can get into the ins and outs of why the SEC might have been a move he just didn't want to make, but like, that makes sense. His job at Oklahoma gets harder. What shocks me, and I'm a 10 on this part of the shock, college coaches who are institutions at their schools don't go sideways. And no matter what you think of, you get to a point where you're Alabama and you're Ohio State and you're Clemson and I'd even put like an Oklahoma up there, right? Like, those guys aren't taking another college job so they can go someplace else and start over and try to build the thing they've already got going. Like, college coaches love to just accumulate championships, put notches on their belt, collect their paychecks, and they love their routine. It's incredibly rare that a coach of his stature leaves his job to take, at this point, USC, if he wins at USC can be the number 1 job in America. But it's not a better job right now than the Oklahoma job. Mm-mm. But it is not in the SEC. Look, I'll go make $10 million a year or whatever and live in LA, and you can live on the beach, you can live in Beverly Hills. The weather's always going to be nice. The recruiting pipeline there is wide open because USC has been down. Nobody else has really filled in the gaps. So Oklahoma has made its living. They've spent so much time setting up a California recruiting pipeline. They've been working on that for a decade plus. And Lincoln Riley has really gone in to the point where the 2023 number 1 or number 2 quarterback in the country committed to Oklahoma. 5-star running back this year was committed to Oklahoma. Receivers, 2 national top 50 receivers already in 2023 committed to Oklahoma. Everybody's peeled off. But from a recruiting pipeline standpoint, it makes sense that Lincoln Riley would go west because that's where he's been putting his eggs for a while. He's been working California, and Oklahoma said, we're going in the other direction. We're going southeast. And he said, cool, I'm going to go west. And it leaves the Oklahoma program in a position where they can hire quality, Anwar. I fully expect that Oklahoma is going to go out and sign a pretty badass head coach. Lincoln Riley is the best offensive head coach in America, period. He's got the Heismans. He's got the stats. He's got everything on his resume that says, I'm that guy. And it's hard to imagine where Oklahoma goes because I think they've got to hire an offensive guy. That's what I think, because that's their identity. Yeah. He takes everything with him. Oklahoma's identity has changed. And no matter who they hire, It's either at best, it's a slight decrease. If you go out and get Lane Kiffin, okay, Lane's a very good offensive coach. He's not Lincoln Riley. There's really nobody that they can go get that would make you go, oh, he's better than Lincoln. So it's a massive hit to Oklahoma because this is a sport dominated by very slight margins. They had the best offensive head coach in America. You don't lose that and shrug it off and think that it doesn't leave a big impact on the program. And in a way, for me, my big Monday overreaction, Anwar, is that this was easily the biggest win for Texas in 2021 by a mile. By win, hook, crook, whatever, Lincoln Riley is no longer a Texas program, at least not on the field. And I think that that's a major win for Texas.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have spent how many years, praising Lincoln Riley and the job that he's done there at OU. I mean, it's to the point where Texas fans would tell us to shut up because we talk so much about him so highly, of him. But when we talk about like recruiting pipeline and being able to, he really has turned OU into a national recruiting pipeline, getting, top receiver out of Florida, Plant City, Florida, that they've got the guys. So you talk about from Florida to California, he's been able to pull guys. And so it's not just, we're in Texas, everyone talks about putting the walls around Texas and keeping the best prospects in here. He's been going everywhere and pulling them in. And like when you talk about these decommits that they're getting, what that gut punch looks like from a decommit standpoint, because they're there for Lincoln. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They weren't there to go for OU.
When you decommit in 5 minutes, Anwar, it's a huge tell.
It is like you're there for one guy and one guy only. And if that guy ain't there, you ain't spending the next 4 years in Norman. Like that's just not what's on your agenda. That's not what you're thinking of. And so from a Texas perspective, and look, I know Texas fans are, happy and it's gloating and so on and so forth. But I think you got to measure that just a little bit. Just a little bit because, when you find
Anwar, if a bully lived in your neighborhood and every day he beats your ass, when the bully moves out of the neighborhood, yes, you could easily have another bully replace him. And who knows, maybe it's an even meaner bully. But if the dude who kicks your ass every day moves to another town, you get to celebrate. You get to at least say.
There's the problem with this block, though. He was the biggest bully on the block. You still got some other bullies. You still got Gundy as a bully. You still got Campbell as a bully. You still now Aranda is kind of going into a bully.
Texas is 5-7. They suck. So, they got on one level, they have to worry about themselves. So it's like, it kind of reminds me in Beverly Hills Cop 2 when they show up to intimidate Gilbert Gottfried. And he's like, what if I told you that instead of, the ticket, what if there was some money in your hand? Like what dollar, like $100? Oh, stop. Like that's where Texas is. They know they have problems, but for a weekend, for a short period of time, it's the best thing that's happened in their lives all season, Anwar. Like I'm okay with Texas fans enjoying it today. Tomorrow, or at some point this week, though, Texas has to get back to being Texas and focusing on itself and trying to get better.
Yeah.
But man, I can't tell Texas fans today that on Monday that they shouldn't be on Sooner Scoop, chuckling, because OU fans are on tilt.
Oh, they aren't, man. They're really pissed off right now.
Like Texas Tech, almost Texas Tech level of tilt towards Chris Beard. And I don't know that Texas fans have seen Oklahoma on tilt like this in 20 years.
Did you see the picture that Eddie tweeted out when they put Trader there at OU? It like someone made a banner and put Trader at the university. Like, there are people who are really, again, I'm reading Sooner Scoop. I always read Sooner Scoop, but you can see there's some pissed off especially on them Twitter streets. Woo! Anytime I say something, I got an OU fan mad at me.
Oklahoma fans have been enjoying the Texas misery of constant coaching changes, and a coaching search begins, and it's like, we're going to go get Nick Saban. And then you end up with Charlie Strong. And then, you go out and you get Tom Herman, but then that falls flat on its face. And then you go out and you hire a court. You know what I mean? Like,
you're going to try to get Urban Meyer.
Yeah, exactly. They've watched these things. Oh God, how could I forget? Right. But they've watched these things and they've enjoyed them. Oklahoma for the last 2 decades has had 2 head coaches, Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley. And both of those 2 guys dominated the Big 12 to such an extent that that's kind of their legacy right now. They don't know drama. They really don't know what it feels like to be unsettled for even 5 minutes. Because when Stoops left in the blink of an eye in the middle of the summer, Lincoln Riley got it immediately. And everybody was like, maybe that's a risk, but it was that was your risk. They believed in Lincoln Riley. Oklahoma would appear to be out of its OC and its DC and its strength and conditioning coordinator and its wide receivers coach, all gone. They've not been this unsettled since John Blake, the worst Oklahoma hire of all time. Well, no, Howard Schnellenberger gets that. But the second worst coaching hire they've ever made, it's been 20 years since they've been this unsettled. And them not knowing how to act, I think, is completely expected. Imagine being married, rock solid marriage for 20-something years. And out of the blue, you get served papers, you're locked out of your house, she's seeing another guy, your kids are calling, you know what I mean? It's like, what just happened? I was happy. That's how Oklahoma fans feel today. They were happy. And today, they're not happy. And they have gone a long time without feeling safe, without feeling happy. Like I said, it's a big win for Texas because anything that's bad for Oklahoma is usually very good for Texas. I think this qualifies.
So I guess the question, would be, do you want to get into the repercussions on what that means for Texas, whether it's recruiting? Because here's a couple of things I get at, and I don't know where you want to go with the conversation.
Yeah.
Because some of the things I've been asked over the weekend is, okay, does this help Texas from a recruiting standpoint to bring, are there guys that Texas is interested in, that they're interested in Texas that may go to OU? How can we get into what this means for UT?
Okay. Well, that's next. I got one thing I want us to do first.
All right.
Then we'll go in, because next, that's a good conversation. That's going to be a great conversation to have. It'll take us a while to walk through it. I think let's have this conversation first. If you're Oklahoma, what do you do? And let me real quick, Sooner Scoop released its Sooner Coaching Hot Board.
Okay.
Let me give you the names that Sooner Scoop has listed on its initial coaching board.
Let's do it.
Baylor's Dave Aranda, South Carolina's Shane Beamer, coming off a 30-0 loss to Clemson, Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell, Notre Dame defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman, Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel, Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning, and Ole Miss offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby, and Nevada head coach Jay Norville. Oh, and Clemson defensive coordinator Brent Venables. I think that's 9 names they listed. Not one of those names makes me go.
Not one moved the needle for me.
So what do you do? If just that list, well, first, what would you do? And then the second question would be, if you were restricted to the 9 names that don't move your needle from the list I gave you, what would you pick? So it's a two-parter.
I mean, this is a tough one. So what I would do, the first thing I would do would be the most unrealistic scenario, okay? The first thing in the most unrealistic scenario, and it would be maybe a 1% chance of happening. So before anyone posts anything and says anything, I say 1%. I asked Bob Stoops, would you like to do this for a year or so just to help us out, right? I beg him, right? That's what I do. If I'm one of the donors, I'm like, look, we need you. We need you. We need you. We need you to go into the cave, pull out your Superman outfit, and save this program. Because outside of that, when you're talking about being able to recruit at a high level, to win at a high level, and of course, the big caveat too, Catch, is to be able to go into the SEC at some point and have success. I don't know. I would beg Bob. Now that's a 1% chance. He probably says no. He's not interested. He's got a good gig. He's all good.
He does have a good gig. Like he doesn't have to work.
He does not. And a lot of coaches don't want to work in this era of the transfer portal. It is a 12 month a year. You Catch, back in the day, guys, we do signing day and they'd be done for a little period of time, or a bowl game, and they'd be done. It's not how it is now. So, man, I guess you take the best of what's left, but I don't know, Catch. I don't know what you do with this.
Can I give you a name?
What?
It's one no one has mentioned.
Okay.
But in the vein of trying to replicate as much elite with elite as possible, he hasn't had a good he's been okay at his current job. What about Chip Kelly from UCLA? Just because he could show up and your offense would still should, by all accounts, still be pretty baller.
And he can recruit. He can come. He's been able to get guys from the state of Texas as well. So, I mean, and it's a name. It's a name that you can say, if you're OU and your recruiting class is falling apart at the seams, that would probably help you out a lot. So it would excite me more than some of these other names here that you figure are gonna. It's a work in progress.
So from the list that I gave you, there are two that stand out to me. Dave Aranda. He's been the best coach in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah.
I mean, and I say that with a ton of respect to Mike Gundy. I mean, Gundy's done an A+ job, but Baylor was dreadful in year one, and he rebuilt that team in kind of the image of himself. And I like him. I think he's really good. Someone's going to hire that guy, and I think they're going to get a great coach. The other guy that's kind of interesting to me, mainly because he fits a young Bob Stoops profile. And I say young, he's 48 years old. Luke Fickell at Cincinnati is an interesting guy because he's more defense. He's a defensive guy. So it's complete 180 swing from what they currently have. He would need to bring in a top flight offensive coordinator at a minimum, but I think he's a really good coach. But he's kind of a Big Ten guy, and I don't know. He's waiting for the right job to open up. I don't know that he wants to be in the SEC. But he's really good. Some of these guys, look, I know Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops were both coordinators. So Joe Castiglione's MO has been to go young. Oklahoma has not, in the last 20 years, when they've had a head coaching position open up, they've not gone for proven. They've gone for up and comer. So a guy like Marcus Freeman, who's at Notre Dame, 35 years old, he fits the profile. You know, Dan Lanning's 35, defensive coordinator at Georgia, SEC experience. Jeff Levy, who I think would be an awful hire, but a former Oklahoma player who's now the Ole Miss offensive coordinator. Those fit the profile of guys that they in the past would have hired. I don't think that's you cannot go into the SEC, in my opinion, as Oklahoma makes this transition. You can't go with unproven. You can't go from having the best because Texas is doing that with Sarkisian right now. Unproven means growing pains. And as best as possible, Oklahoma's won 6 of the last 7 Big 12 titles. They need somebody who can come in and pick up and maintain. And if you can grow from there, great. But this isn't a rebuild job. And if you're bringing in someone inexperienced, you're making it a rebuild job.
I mean, I'm just looking through the problem. Here's the one of the problems, Catch, as I was looking through the list that you're talking. It is so. It goes back to what you said to start with. To follow one of the guys who you would consider to be top 5 in just overall coaches in the country, easily top 5. There's probably not going to be a hire that you go, yay, like that. Go screw you, Lincoln. We don't need you. Like, I can't. There's not a hire out there like that. For what's available, there's not a single one that's going to. Every single one will come with a set of question marks that you just don't know. Can they do it? I mean, I like Aranda, but again, can he recruit at the level that OU wants to recruit at? Because you can bring in your guys at Baylor and have a 30th ranked class and coach them up, and everyone's going to be good with that. It's like Texas. It ain't nobody going to give you, a pat on the back if you got the 28th ranked class and say, watch me work. Like, that's not how. There's just certain programs. That's just not how it goes.
Well, and Riley, look, one of the things that was going on when Stoops left is their recruiting had started to plateau a little bit. They'd only won one. Before they hired Lincoln Riley as the offensive coordinator, they had a 4-year stretch where by their standards, it hadn't been great. They won one Big 12 championship in 4 years. And Art Briles and Baylor and TCU and Mike, they'd all kind of boxed him out a little bit. They needed a shot in the arm. Lincoln Riley comes in and he changes recruiting for Oklahoma in a huge way, to the point where they're pulling 5-star running backs out of California. They're pulling 5-star quarterbacks and 5-star. They're making it rain in a completely new territory. And look, we can start to transition, I suppose. I guess at the end of the day, you and I don't have answers.
No.
There's not an obvious go get that guy. And so it leaves us in a position to talk about all these other guys who aren't Lincoln Riley and feel like a step down. Because I personally would have Lincoln Riley in my top 3. Saban's won by a lot. In a world where Urban Meyer is available in the college game and not in the middle of the NFL season, he's 2. And then with all due respect to Dabo Swinney, who has rings on his fingers. So look, I would also say he's had in Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, he didn't develop either of those guys, but he had them. You take an all-world quarterback away from Dabo, we saw what that looked like this year at Clemson. The reason why I would put Lincoln at 3, he develops his quarterbacks. He is special on offense. And this is a sport where being special on offense can get you a lot of places, way more so than being just good on defense. So I'd have Dabo come in at 4 immediately afterwards, but there's nobody else that I would put in that 3 spot. So they're losing a top 3 for me, college head coach. And props to USC. They just went out and hired a top 3 college head coach. And they look like a full-on dumpster fire. They've been a clown show for years now. And they look, nothing but props to USC. That's a baller ass move, man. It is. They changed the outlook of their program with the snap of a finger. And Oklahoma is left reeling. Neither one of us apparently have an answer. I mean, the best I got is Chip Kelly, and I don't think that would excite Oklahoma fans at all. But from a non-biased, outside perspective, it feels like the most like for like thing that they could do, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll end this portion of it. I mean, Venables is probably a good option for them. They've kind of done a lot of things from within, previously. So I don't know if they would go for like an Alex Grinch, kind of thing. The hard part is, these guys are defensive guys and they're not necessarily offensive guys. But, the thing is, to your point though, props to USC. This is my thing with Texas. When it's time to flex. When you got the opportunity to flex, you flex. And USC was kind of gotten tired of, all right, let's see if this guy is proven or not proven, or see what he can do. And USC 5 said, screw it. We're gonna hire the best. We're gonna make the best tell us no. And for USC, props to that flex. That's a hell of a flex. For them out there. It leaves OU in a hell of a freaking position going forward. But the thing is, you and I don't have the answers, and that's the great part, because it's not our beat. We don't have to. But man, I don't know what the Big 12 looks like going forward. I don't know. We'll talk about the Texas impact there. I would still take the 1%, honestly, and I would figure out, Bob, is there any way we can make this work for you a second go around?
By the way, I hate that idea. Bob will hold it together in the short. Bob can't do anything. Bob's not a long-term answer. I think recruiting in the offense falls. The thing that's going to be really interesting with Oklahoma, and we'll move to the Texas side of this in just a second, because there's really a lot to talk about. What happens to their program from the portal standpoint? One thing that we've never seen in college football, because it's never quite existed, is a head coach at this level. Again, lateral moves never happen. They just don't. And this is a backwards move for Bob. Now, he can make it the best job in America, but as it stands, he's got a lot of work to do at USC. Just like they have a recruiting class full of guys that committed because of Lincoln Riley, they have a roster full of guys that are there because of Lincoln Riley. Would he take 10 guys from Caleb Williams wants to come to USC? With all due respect to how much you love Oklahoma and you don't want to kick dirt in the face of the people that you built up relationships. You've taken Caleb Williams.
Yes, absolutely.
You're taking him with you. And
when you make that move, you understand you're burning the house down. And at that point, you take what you want out of that house, but you understand that house is going to burn. It's not your problem at this point.
Bob Stoops shows up, first team meeting, and a lot of these dudes are just looking at each other like, he's not why they're there.
Correct.
And
nobody will be, though.
No.
Outside of Alex Grinch.
It's why this is such a gut punch. If he goes to the NFL, it's different. He goes to another college program, and half the guys in that locker room are thinking to themselves, can I come with you? And once that mentality sets in, the idea of looking around, I mean, Oklahoma, I'm not gonna scream fire in a crowded theater, but because it might not happen, but there are matches, there's match books in the corner that can easily catch the theater on fire. And the Oklahoma for me now is the most interesting program in America, because this is, with the portal rules the way they exist, this is a stress test that no program in the history of college football has completely been placed under. This is just unique because I don't know, man. I'm thinking like since you've been in Orange Bloods in the last 8 years, is there anything nationwide that's trying to think of every program I can think of. I mean, Jimbo Fisher leaves Florida State to go to A&M, somewhat similar, but Jimbo had gotten stale at Florida State. They were ready to run him out of town. So it's not exactly the same thing, but and quite frankly, Jimbo Fisher coming to Texas A&M has shifted the landscape of this state. So on the rare occasions when something remotely like this happens, it's a huge deal.